Consistent, predictable income. Today, I'm joined with Miss Leigh Brown, and we're going to be talking about next is now and why momentum doesn't come from, motivation or perfect timing. It comes from choosing next and moving anywhere. So that's what Leigh and I are going to be talking about today. A little bit about her is if you're ever, if you're working harder than ever, but still struggling to build consistent momentum financially or professionally. Leigh Brown understands why. She's a keynote speaker, a leadership coach, and a best-selling author who helps professionals stop waiting for the right time. Freaking stop it and do it now. Welcome, Leigh. How are you?
Hey Dan, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
It's my pleasure. So before we jump into to what's next is now and how to move forward with the future, when the future feels uncertain. I want to talk about that today with you. Little introduction about who is Leigh Brown. Give us a little background story.
Well, for 26 years, I've been in residential real estate, so I'm very familiar with no broke months because I've had plenty of broke months. And prior to that, I did corporate sales for Husqvarna. I sold chainsaws, weed trimmers, and lawn mowers, the premium ones on the market. And then prior to that, I worked on Wall Street for a quick minute of my life. And I've spent my whole life in and around sales, and I love every good minute of it. And on the bad minutes, I've often thought about giving up entirely, but you can't because sales is an addiction, as you know.
My goodness. I didn't know. I thought I was the only one who ever felt like, oh my goodness, I really want to have this life. Okay, so tell me, of those three categories, lawn care or lawn equipment, Wall Street or real estate, do you have a preference, one harder than the other? What are your thoughts? And I may have gotten a lawn care back. I may have not repeated that exactly the way I should have, but between those three, favorites, least favorites, or blah, don't really care.
Depends on the topic, right? Because the thing I loved about working on Wall Street was the pace because I'm high energy. I love to work. I
Yeah.
enjoyed understanding the numbers and the financials, but I hated the side of the public that I saw when I dealt with their money. So people are very different when you are in financial conversations because everything is personal and end of life related. And then in chainsaw sales, I loved my product. I enjoyed the hunt. I enjoyed the stability of a commodity product, but I hated corporate sales because I was told what to do every single day. And on the wonderful times when I would exceed my quota and outdo my formula, they would then rejigger the formula so that I would make exactly the same amount of money. And I hated not being rewarded for my hard work. Real estate, I love being rewarded for my hard work. I hate that I have to work for free so much, and people in the public don't always respect a professional realtor because the noise is loud. But at the end of the day, sales gives us a freedom you don't get anywhere else. And as long as you're able to put aside a little money for a rainy day, you can withstand it. But it's all active decision making, right? It's all about the self-discipline to survive the unemployed days because we have unemployed days in sales that normals don't have when they work their 8 to 5 jobby jobs.
Jobby jobs. I love that, Leigh. So let's talk about the concept of Nexus now, which is really powerful. What does that concept mean in practice for you?
Well, what it meant in my life was that when Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina in September of 2024, I felt very
And where are
obligated.
where are you located?
I'm in Concord, North Carolina, so I'm about two
Okay.
hours away from the zone of destruction where biblical size floods, 28 feet above flood level, cell towers gone, roads gone, massive destruction, massive chaos. And I felt obligated to help people in my state. So did a normal relief run and then wound up here a year and a half later. I've got a nonprofit that we've started to help the families and have just continually said yes because it's the right thing to do. And I was told on every front, what are you doing? You're in real estate. You have a successful brokerage. Everything's good for you. You're not a relief worker. You have no business over there. The government will handle it. And I didn't listen to any of the naysayers because I felt a calling to be of service. And everything changed in my life because you don't really know what you're capable of until you say yes to something and then you just completely lean into it. And then the perk of it is my real estate business has not died. It has actually just transformed to where now when the phone rings, people look at me as a different kind of professional because they've seen the nonprofit work and they see my expertise on the real estate side. So it's actually less competitive now for really good business so that I can actually do the sales that will pay for my nonprofit habit.
My nonprofit habit. I love that, Lee. So I have a feeling that Next is now may be a recurring theme in your life. So whether it be helping people in a hurricane catastrophe or starting a business or whatever the case may be. Am I right in my guess on that?
You are right on the money because sometimes it also looks like making a career change. I was miserable working on Wall Street and I wasn't going to stay there when I was miserable. It doesn't matter if the money's good if your stomach hurts every day. And so I said, you know what, let's do whatever's next. And I landed at Husqvarna by accident because I had to get out of financial services. They were hiring salespeople, and I said, we have a Husqvarna chainsaw at home on the farm. I can talk this language. And so I went in and got hired pretty quickly. But then that corporate wheel wasn't for me. And so I said, well, what would be next? Well, I joined my dad, who had a career in real estate, and I said I wasn't going to do it, of course, like most kids. And then I've turned it into something a little broader than I expected, a lot broader than I expected, and deeper than I expected. So I would just say that I'm not the person that lets moss grow on me. And I know that our time on this earth is precious. And I don't like to say that it's short because I don't know if it's short or long, but what we have is precious. So why do so many people spend it being miserable, Dan? They land in a space and they feel like something would be better, but they won't give it a chance. Well, giving something a chance might be scary, but it could also be the best thing you ever did. So why not find that best thing?
What do you think so many capable people freeze when things feel uncertain?
I frankly don't think it's just internal fear. I think it's the fear of being judged by external people. And I do blame social media for a lot of that because you and I are of a certain generation, which is never named.
Are
I
you
don't know
calling
why.
me no? Are you calling me oldie?
No,
That's
I'm
not
calling
very
you a Gen
polite of
Xer,
you.
baby. Us Gen Xer,
That's not very polite of you.
Gen Xers have been
I'm a
forgotten. You're a Gen
20-year-old
X.
pup. Leave me alone.
You're a liar. You're a Gen X. And you think about it, the millennials get all of the attention and then they throw it back on the boomers. And we in Gen X are like, whatever, we'll just do our thing here in the middle. But our generation didn't grow up with the noise of the world on us constantly judging us. I mean, we were judged in high school, but it wasn't like strangers on the internet could type a comment. And I do think too many people give credibility to strangers on the internet that they should never give them. And so they're afraid of what's going to be said or what somebody might think instead of, well, forget them. What about you?
Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy. I have somebody in my past life that's bullying me online right now, and that doesn't feel good. No matter what your age is. So I know that the younger generation that's more common. Yeah, tisk tisk, right? But it definitely it's something that is it amplifies because people can hide, and it seems like if you're not like face to face with somebody that you can say things that are inappropriate or not true or whatever the case may be, or maybe they're true and just shouldn't be shared. But that's definitely a piece of the world today. So how do you think that if we don't have the answers and we don't know what's certain for our future? Like we don't know. And our life here's precious, as you mentioned. It may be short, it may be long. Who knows? That's a perspective. We don't know what happens afterwards, but it's certainly precious. So if you don't know what's going to happen in the future and next is now, well, how do you know what the right next is?
You don't know. You just go do. And I look at this in sales. I have agents that will come to me and like, how am I going to get another listing? Where's my next buyer? And I said, let me see your phone. How many outbound? Oh, you don't have any outbound phone calls. Well, it's going to be hard for you to find the
Yeah.
next sale when you're not doing the bare minimum. And the bare minimum in sales is
So,
talking to people. And then as you talk to them, somebody's going to say, screw you, go away, cuss you out. Okay. You have to know the best four-letter word in sales. And you know that four-letter word. It's called next. So you have to say, all right, I ran into a jerk. Who's next? Might be somebody great. And the same thing happens with job choices and with dating. I mean, everybody that ever looked for the right relationship, as they say, you got to kiss a few frogs to find a prince, but you don't hang out with the frogs forever. You keep going. I mean, I don't know why so many people give up, Dan. It makes me sad that they turn into a ball on the couch up under a cover watching programs like Tiger King. And I think COVID told a lot of people to quit, and they've had trouble getting back up out of that space, even here 6 years after all of that started. And at some point, you just have to, as they say, put your big girl panties on and get after it.
I leave my big girl panties at home most days.
We
But
appreciate that. On behalf of your whole audience, we're grateful.
so Lee, I don't know if I agree with everything you're saying. The one thing I would suggest, or maybe a different perspective, is I don't know if you're right about the times have changed. You're right about everyone's got a camera in their pocket. Everyone can go on social media and it's a different age than when you and I grew up. And that's all true. And the pandemic changed things as well. But I've also 15, 20 years ago, there was a different reason or a different excuse or a different whatever. I think that there's always a reason or always an excuse to not do, the activity, and I think that that maybe comes from just not having a perspective of what the activity is and knowing that you're gonna at best get shot down 20 out of one time, 20 times out of one yes. And maybe even closer to 50 no's to a yes. And that yes may take 7 or 15 requests, right? Like that is just what it is. What's your perspective on that?
Well, to me, that's a numbers game, right? And so if
Yeah.
if I write down the numbers and I can look at empirical sales data over 60 years, and we know that historically, 10% of outbound reaches turn into business at some point. That's just been proven in every profession, every industry. So if I know that, I know that if I start making some outbound calls, I'm probably at some point going to run into somebody who would like to talk to me about my professional space. Now, I don't know if it's going to be on number one or number 40, because if it's 10%, those 10% could be all chunked together at the end. But I
Yeah.
know that if I keep a tick sheet, because yes, I'm an old person with paper and pen, and I like keeping a tick sheet because it shows me forward progress. So even if I run into no's, like, all right, still move forward, move forward, move forward. And I know that's not a common skill anymore because we haven't trained the next generation, in my opinion, to be resilient against all of the negative, all of the no's. And I've seen it in my own kids. They will fall back before they will bounce. Well, at a certain point, you have to count on your own ability, and your ability might just be the ability to say hello to somebody who needed you to say hello to them. Okay, so what if in my 40 outbound calls, I run into somebody like I did yesterday? I ran into a lady who needed me to pray for her brother and had nothing to do with real estate. And I said, well, all right, I can do that too. And so I prayed with her and her brother. And I don't know if they'll need me for real estate in the future, but hey, it was something I could say yes to, whatever. And I'm just going to look at life like that. There's going to be opportunities that appear. So take the ones you get and keep going. You just don't know. I mean, isn't that the fun of sales too? We don't know what's on the other side. We have this excitement of the hunt and the excitement of the chase, and not everybody's equipped for that. And the people who do work their jobby jobs with the W-2 from 8 to 5, they don't thrive on hunting and gathering. And that's okay because there's a space for all of us. But if you've chosen the sales field, you have to tap into that a little bit.
Yeah, you said excitement. I believe, and I've observed that the emotional driver of fear and excitement is relatively the same. It's just the way that the perspective and the framework that you put around that. I'm curious, Lee. So if someone feels stuck right now, what's the first action they should take?
Well, I would say call your mama, because if you still have her, you talk to somebody who loves you. And if you don't have her, call your best friend or your kid or your grandkid or somebody. If we would start off our lives with somebody that's good for us, that believes in who we are without thinking about what we do, you have a different energy when you start picking up the phone to do something. And so if you're in a quagmire and you're lost, forget all of the nasty for just a minute and call somebody that you love. And if you don't have anybody because your whole family line has been wiped out and you have no friends and you are a workaholic with no life, okay, well, you got to fix that. So go play pickleball or something and make a friend that you could say hello to. Because when we start from a place of being filled up, if you run into something negative, well, you're not already on empty. And I think too many of us in life, we're so busy, we run on empty all the time. You got to reverse that around. So I start with something positive, and then the next thing I'm going to do is look at my core competencies. One of my core competencies in real estate is my ability to connect with people, but another one is being able to understand and dissect market data. Not everybody has those skills. And so whoever's watching and listening to this, you have something you're competent at, and I don't know what it is, but you do. And if you've forgotten, call 5 of your past customers and your past clients and say, I'm on a mission to figure out how to better build a mission statement and an elevator speech. What did you see in me that made you choose me? Because your best past clients will always tell you why they chose you out of the great world of salespeople and companies and offerings. And they'll tell you because they got nothing to lose. You already sold them something. And then you send them a little Starbucks card to thank them. But you'll start to figure out, were you a great communicator? Were you fun? Were you serious? Were you data driven? Were you fast? I mean, there's something about you. If I know my core competencies and I know somebody loves me, well, now when I get on the phone, I know what to offer. Hey, just calling to see if you have questions about anything happening in real estate. Well, they say, well, what does that mean? I'm like, depends on you. What's going on? Well, we wanted to paint our living room. What color's popular right now? All right. So I'm going to have enough knowledge to answer that question, but it keeps me moving. And I think too often we're trying to be all things to all people. I am not all things to all people. I am a specific set of competencies which suits a specific group of people in the public. So when I know who I am, I can go reach them. I'm a rifle instead of a shotgun. And when you think about it that way, I'm going to hit something and I'm more likely to hit the right target than I am at spraying and praying.
Yeah, and I guess if you get a different four-letter word, you can always respond back, say, "My mama loves me. Screw you." That's what I would
I
do.
mean,
That's what I
absolutely.
heard. That's what I heard you say, Lee. Is that did I hear you correctly on that? No.
100%. I'm her favorite.
So, so taking a look at this, so what you're talking about when we do this within the consistent predictable income community, which is I call that identifying your superpower. And then once you have identified your superpower, then you then identify like what are all the ways I could find business, whether that's in real estate sales, insurance sales, chainsaw sales, or on Wall Street. There's a certain way that I could make chainsaw sales and there's probably a million different ways. And then I look, maybe not a million, but there's a ton of them. And then I look at all the different ways that I could make chainsaw sales or real estate sales or insurance sales. And then I look at what's my superpower. Now let me just match the two of those together. And now let me do that 1 to 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now, guess what? If you have no business, you have no business doing anything but seeking business. So that's where you may want to erase that 1 to 3 hours. Yeah, I made that up. Thank you, Lee. That's why you want to erase that 1 to 3 hours. And guess what? I would be spending my entire day today finding business if I had no business because that's my only job. And that's what I did my first couple of years. There was days that I'd spend 14 hours a day lead generating. And, as a result, my third year in business, I did 109 transactions. And in my 18 months, I bought the brokerage I worked for, right? That's not because I'm have any it's not because I have superpowers. It's because I looked at what are my superpowers and then I leaned into them based off what the opportunity is. What are your thoughts on the way I just dissected what I thought you heard, what I thought I heard you say?
Well, you're exactly right. I'm just nerdier, so I call it a core competency, and you've got your sparkle with the superpower. It's the same thing, but
Sure.
you're 100% right that if you don't have a big book of business, you're not going to build it scrolling on your phone nonstop. People will call that prospecting. Like, baby, that is not prospecting. Doom scrolling is not doing anything for you unless you see a post. And for those of y'all that love to scroll, here's your homework assignment. You scroll past somebody you knew from high school, pause it and call them and say, hey, I just saw your post over here about your mama fell and broke her hip. How's she doing? You could actually take your doom scrolling and turn it into prospecting with very little effort, and then you already have something to talk about too. But the difference is the ones who want to be fed and the ones that are willing to go get. And prospecting is going and getting it. But I love the point you made. And anybody watching and listening to this needs to accept the truth of this. It doesn't necessarily pay off immediately. It might take 3 years before all of that hard work blossoms. And I tell realtors this all the time, like, when will I have more predictable income? And I said, well, it's about year 10. And they kind of look downtrodden. And I said, by year 10, your sphere, your community, they know you're in real estate at that point. Until then, you're really trying to scrap to build a name for yourself. But if you're willing to scrap, the rewards will be there provided you are competent and knowledgeable and ethical and all those things that should be givens, and they're not givens anymore. But if you're all those things and you work, shazam, it's going to be there.
Shazam. Leigh, how do you help people, because you mentioned about, that like a lot of people, they're just not taking the action, right? But they know they have to take the action. They have the thought, but then they allow themselves to get a distraction. So how do you help people from thinking to doing?
Well, I have to make things very manageable because as a realtor, I have some measure of ADD. I think it just goes along with being in a multitasking business. Anybody in sales, you have to prospect and manage current clients and close this one, and you have a fire over here. It's just part of the thing.
Yep.
Well, when Dan says 3 hours of prospecting, some of y'all threw up in your mouth a little bit because you're thinking 3 hours. I can't do 3 hours of anything. Okay, I get you, boo, but you can make three phone calls. And so then the next thing is, well, who do I call? Well, see, this magical thing in my hand, this little iPhone here, has a contact manager in it. And I'm going to guarantee you that you have not called all the people in your contact manager. And so for those of y'all that are disorganized, I see you. You don't even have to call. Well, my light just went away because I was talking too much, I guess, about the phone. But you can play roulette, and I'll just hit the big scroll button, and suddenly, I think the battery just went. So I'll just be in the dark here for the remainder of the episode. It'll be the darkerly. And when you think about this, you can look through your contact manager, call three people, and then suddenly you've done prospecting. And here's the fun part about it. If they're saved in your phone, they probably don't hate you. They're probably going to say, "Hey, Dan, what you doing?" And they're going to ask you about your life. And now you're having a conversation. So you get to the end of those three phone calls and you're like, I'm going to make number four. I'm going to overachieve today. And then suddenly you'll find you spent an hour making phone calls doing the very thing you needed to do. As soon as you realize you don't have to do it the way Dan and I did. I was a cold call cowboy too. I had to make $300 a day when I worked
Yeah.
for financial services. I could still do that, but I don't have to now because now I'm more seasoned and my phone does ring. But at the beginning, I did it because I was determined to find a way through. And it was not fun. It sucked, but it worked.
Yeah, and so you're on that other side of you did the work and now your business has evolved. So what you do today, you've learned a lot, right? So you would do it differently because you would shortcut it. But in the same sense, you wouldn't necessarily advise me, for example, starting to do what Leigh does today because I don't have the momentum that you have yet. So I got to somehow or another get from here to there. And so what is, taking the next step and that, what does that look like, when the end feels so far away, right? You go back into, my goodness, it's gonna be 10 years before I know what the heck I'm doing. Like that's not like I can't even imagine 10 years from now. Like so what do you do when what do you have advice to that person who's like, I don't know, it just seems so far away. What do I do to take the next step?
Well, if you want to do what you're doing, so that's the first thing people have to come to grips with. If you like insurance, sales, real estate, mortgage, whatever you're doing, and you want to do this, that's step one. Okay, I want this to work. I want this to be my career. And then you say, all right, so that's the starting point, and I want to be Leigh Brown. You probably don't, but hey, if you did, here's the end point. How do I get from there to here? Well, I have to do measurable, consistent things. And the measurable, consistent things start with outbound phone calls to the people in your phone. It's the same thing that I do today that you can do today if you choose to do it today. Now, you might have to make more than three, but if you start with three, you're more likely to make 10. So quit giving yourself some unrealistic expectation and start with something. And we all know if you do it every day, you will build a habit. And as you build the habit, it will continue to build. And it's the same thing you said, Dan. When you work that hard for the first 3 years, the year three looks wildly different for your pipeline. We all have to build the same muscles. If I stop talking to people today, my business will die. It might take it a minute, but it will die. If
Yeah.
you don't feed that seed that you just put in the soil, it's not going to grow. So either take care of it or pick up the plant and move it somewhere else because there's no shame in changing careers. The world right now is so full of options. It's one thing you could use your chat GPT for. Say, here's my resume. What should I be doing? Get some advice from the AI bots out there And maybe it's going to say, you're in the right place, and you'll believe chat when you didn't believe me and Dan. And hey, that might be you, boo. So go for it.
Yeah, and I would say even in not only just your resume, but like who you are as a human being, right? Because I think that that's a piece that most people miss. It's not, it's like what skills do I have? But you know what? When I went to college after the army, one of my I thought majors was going to be accounting. And I thought, because I was business minded, right? But I didn't recognize that I hate math and I hate accounting. I hate all that type of stuff. So I didn't do very well in it, right? And so could I have been a successful accountant? Probably. I think I'd be successful in most anything that I do. But if I was looking for a second or third career today, and I said, okay, who's Dan Rochon? And what is his strengths? I want to, what is his weakness? What does he love doing? What is his passion? I think that that's really what, if you have a passion for, and it goes back into lead generating as a salesperson, if you have a passion for banging the phones out, do it. If you have a passion for hanging out at the Starbucks and meeting people, do it. If you have a passion for, hosting networking events, do it. Whatever it is that you have a passion for, that's the lane that I recommend that you choose. So Leigh, let's talk about the role of trust, in yourself, trust in your others, and how does the role of trust play into the opportunity of, what's next?
I believe trust is everything. And if I go back and reference AI again, one of the issues that we have all observed with ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and all the rest of them is whatever it spits out, you are well advised to fact check it because we don't trust that the results are correct. And I don't know if you saw that news story, that lawyer that tried to make up his case based on ChatGPT, and it made up law cases, it made up the precedents, and it was the judge looked at it and was astonished and threw the whole mess out because this guy shortcut it and then didn't fact check it, which means the judge would now never trust that lawyer again, which means that the
Yeah.
future clients of that lawyer can't trust that the brains will do the digging in, and he might be the smartest fella ever. And so when you start realizing that technology isn't necessarily going to be able to replace your ability to cognitively process and be trustworthy in the research that you've done. So you think about it, I can be trusted. What happens with that? Well, you have to exhibit trust to earn it, in my opinion. I don't think you can be a snake and be trusted for long because it will all come out. But you're going to be making deposits in your trust account of life no matter what you do. And I said I'm going to be there at 10 a.m. Well, were you there at 10 a.m. or was it 10:05? Well, you just blew something. Now, if you're running late and it's 9:55 and you call and say, I am 5 minutes behind, I will be there at 10:05, you can salvage the trust with communication, but you don't really want to spend your whole life doing salvage work. And then you realize that your social media could also be a place that you engender trust. I have found this by making videos. I've been doing video on social media since really Facebook rolled it out about 2009. So I'm one of the OG video people. And if you look back at my early stuff, it's entirely different hair, didn't have the crow's feet in the bags. And I was actually a little brasher then than I am now because when you get a
Hold
little
on, what? Browser then?
legit, it was much worse then. But you also have this chance. I've been able to exhibit who I am over time that actually grows your trust when you're very vulnerable and raw. People can see that and they respond to that, which means on the day that you need somebody to trust you, you already built it and you're not trying to fake it all the time. So I think social media can be a benefit if it's used properly and if you're not trying to be perfect all the time, which we all know people, especially from high school, they peaked in high school and they're trying to recapture it forever on social media. We know that's not real because we know that's the third husband. We know what happens over there. We saw it because we all live in the same town. But then you act like it's perfect. If it's not perfect, well, just go ahead and acknowledge that. That's actually all right because other people aren't perfect either. That's the magic sauce of building trust. They're not perfect, you're not perfect, but you can work together. And so I'm looking at my business life. A lot of my success now comes from the fact that people know what they're going to get and they've met me, so they know me, or they've watched me online and they feel like they know me. And then they meet me like, oh, you're just like that. I'm like, yeah, that's actually me. It's not AI, which I think is my advantage, frankly, in a future AI robot driven world is that First of all, AI can't replicate a Southern accent, so hallelujah for that. And the second thing is it doesn't know how to spit out as quickly as what I can spit out. So find your superpower, find your core competency, and here's the spoiler alert. You're the magic package. You are the product. You're what you're selling. All the other stuff is an add-on, but the way that you are, the way that you communicate, it's like you said, Dan, it's the way that you're wired, the unique capabilities that you have, you're magic sauce. And that people trust that. And by the way, the people who don't like you because you're different, not your people anyway. Let them go. They will
Got
find
a four-letter
somebody
word
else
for
that
those
matches
people.
them. Next.
Yeah, next. That's the four-letter word I was thinking of.
You were not
Uh,
thinking see you next Tuesday because that's an ugly word.
oh my goodness gracious. You did not just do that. Oh goodness. All right. You threw me off my game. I don't get thrown off very often. So goodness gracious, you definitely threw me
I
off.
win.
Uh, yeah, you were talking about AI in there, and so something that I've recognized about AI is that it's only as good as the user, right? So now that it's sort of starting to get developed, et cetera, if you don't know, for me with AI, it's about asking better questions.
Yes.
Right. And so if you're able to understand how to ask better questions, it's a tool that will transform, that has the opportunity to transform your world. But it's still related to you as the user of what questions you're going to ask them, right? And I'll give you an example. I was doing a project the other day and I said, who's the top 10 people in the world that have done this? And then to put them as a board of directors to help them advise me on how to do the project. And then find five different people who are genius minds who have nothing to do with this at all to give me some influence and some insight on this as well. And ChatGPT gave me Einstein and Pope Leo and a few others, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, how is it that I'm in a world that Einstein can advise me on this project? Right? Like, how is that possible? And so, so just like now, it takes you to be able to think through, like, okay, how am I going to be able to use the technology? Because most people won't think like that. Now, as it develops and people like me and you have these conversations and other people like, oh my goodness, I hadn't thought about that, then yeah, that will develop and more people will do it. And that's fine. It's still in its toddler stages. But I still think that you have a competitive advantage just by being a human being,
Okay.
right? And then knowing how to use the tools that are available to us.
Man, everybody in this audience, y'all are crazy if you don't hit pause right now and go back over what Dan just said and write down that prompt and go plug it into whatever your
Yeah.
GPT program is because that's brilliant. I can't wait to try it. And you're 100% right, Dan. It's all about the prompt. It's how you tell the tool what you're looking for, but it has to come from here and from here. And I will just tell you, one of the things I love about chat is when I tell it, you are a leading podcast host. You are evaluating the top podcast. You tell it who it is, and then you tell it what you're looking for. And then it spits something out. And I'm like, that's not what I wanted. Like, refine that to sound like Leigh Brown, refine that to fit North Carolina,
Sure.
refine that. And so you can actually refine through it as you're thinking, but it's a marriage of you plus the tool. But if you just take what it spits out and run with it, you're adding
Yeah.
to your own guys.
I literally use it as a board of directors. And the interesting
So
thing
smart.
is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, classic book. If you haven't read it, it's probably
So good.
the third best book that you can read, fourth best book, because I know that I've got at least two, and I know you've got at least one. I'm putting up, the fourth best book that you can read after Next is Now and Google Dan Rochon if you're looking for some other goodies, and Leigh Brown as well. But Think and Grow Rich, they talk about forming a mastermind. I've had a mastermind in my head for years. I go to sleep and Ben Franklin's on there, Walt Disney's on there, and P.T. Barnum. And I think about like, okay, if I want to know about marketing, I'm going to ask P.T. Barnum. He was a master marketer. If I want to know about client care, I'm going to talk to Walt Disney, right? Like, how is it that Disneyland is so clean? Well, because customer service was a part of the design. Right. And so you think about like, and you put them together as your board of directors. And I've done that through years. Now I don't have to imagine what Arnold Schwarzenegger would tell me. Now I can actually get the advice from him. And by the way, I always love using Arnold Schwarzenegger because people don't really give him the validity of what that guy is world class in four different categories. Real estate investing, before he was 28, he was a multimillionaire. actor, Mr. Universe, acting governor, right? Like he reached the pinnacle of four different separate lanes in his life, right? That's the type of people I want on my board. And now you got the technology to be able to do it. Leigh, I think we got off a little on track. That's my fault. Let's go back to Nexus now. So you wrote a book about it. Tell me about the book.
It came out of my experience of dialing myself into Western North Carolina doing relief work after this hurricane and really evaluating what in the heck happened because when I first was putting the word out about this very horrible storm, the media, of course, blipped it and then they were on to other noise because if it bleeds, it leads, and they weren't paying attention to it. And so I had a couple videos go viral, and then strangers from all over the country are sending me money to help the people affected by the area. And in the first 30 days, I had $350,000 sent to me from strangers. And I'm sitting
Wow.
here going, what what are you people doing? You are trusting a stranger from the internet with your money, and I am not going to squander it. I have receipts. I spent every penny, but holy crap, what is going on? And so I got to thinking about how it was that people trusted me enough to give me their hard-earned dollars, knowing that it would go to the people in need and not be wasted or taken for any kind of a grift. And it was in the process of understanding how it all went down and the ultimate result was being able to help my neighbors who had been completely forgotten by the agencies and governments they were supposed to be able to trust. But as it turns out, it was their neighbors who leaned in. And that's what it came from. And I'm so grateful every day that all the things in my life that didn't work out, because I've run for office 3 times, and spoiler alert, I've lost all 3 times. But when you fail at things, sometimes you think you're a failure, but it's not necessarily a failure. It's just that's not for you. So had I won any of those races, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And I'm grateful that my steps have been redirected into a better place. And you start thinking about where you are in your own life with chaos and disruption. I don't like this and things aren't right. The whole point of the book is how do you keep moving forward, building trust so that the other side looks different. And it's it's my better it's the my 4 books I've written. I'm the most proud of this one because it's less sales and marketing, which my first 3 books were more for sales approach. This is more about a life approach, which, as we know, actually winds up being for sales too, but it's little more in depth.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you another question about that book, but real quick, something that you said there is like I ran for office for 3 times, and I found out that that's not my path. And I'm not, maybe it seemed like you said at some point maybe you judge yourself negatively about that, and you and I both know that you have run for office 3 times more than me, and 3 times more than than probably anybody listening to this, right?
That's good.
And so you have, you're taking your shots, right? You're what is next? Next is now, right? And so I found that as well. It's like I did a TEDx talk recently. I wasn't so pleased with it, but I was like, oh my goodness, like who cares? Anybody that's judging me, one of two people. They've either given a TED talk before, they know how difficult it is, and they're not going to judge me, or they've never given a TED talk and they never will, and they may judge me. Well,
But that's
guess
my
what?
immediate reaction. You're like, I did a TEDx talk. I'm like, go Dan. That's so cool. I don't care what
Right.
the topic was or how it came out. You did it.
Yeah, the influence gap is what it is. It's not out yet, but if you're listening, you check it out when I'm not sure when it's going to be published, but it will be soon. Leigh, how can I get your book?
You can go to leighbrown.com, Leigh Brown.com, and it's right there. And I'm super excited. You can also go to Amazon if you're wanting Jeff Bezos to have a piece of the action. And if you like to listen to books, I did the Audible myself because I could not let some personality-free voice talk about my book. So it's got to have a Southern accent. So you can find it there. And I would be so excited to hear what people think in the form of reviews.
LeighBrown.com and give her a positive review, give her an accurate review, give her an honest review. It's going to be 5 stars. Just give her a review. Leigh, thank you so much for joining us today. Audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to wish that you have the best day of your life. Be grateful, make good choices, go help somebody. And as the famous Leigh Brown once told us,